Oh boy, what's my hair doing this time? It's unfortunate, but hope my mic works. You know what? I think it does. I have a good feeling, and I'm not even going to check because I have a real good feeling about tonight. I think it's just going to be by the book. I'm going to eat the paper. It'll go down my gullet, out through my ass tomorrow morning. Stream will end. No lollygagging. No random political discussions. I mean, if you guys really want to, we can go. But I mean, I was going to say nice even pieces, but I mean, here we go. We already fucked it up, didn't we? But I'd say today we are going to overcome adversity, this bullshit, and achieve success like we always do. Have I ever failed to eat a piece of paper a day? That's right. Didn't think so. Except the days where I took a break, but that doesn't matter. Now, one thing I will not fail this time at doing is, all right, Lip and Ian, my favorite online couple, going at it again, watching the paper stream the whole way through too. Putting very mentally engaging comments, as I always expect for them to do. We're going to go with a 8.9 out of 10 today. And I'm going to, I already got a piece in my mouth. Now I don't. Hold this. All right, Mom Pounder, you finally pounded the watch stream button just in time. And I hope your mom's in the background to watch this, because this is a very educational and family-friendly stream. Talk about a variety of different subjects with the proper moderator, aka me, to make sure all of you don't go off topic and say anything inappropriate or naughty. However, at the end of the day, it is still up to you to be appropriate, because I'm not babysitting. This is not Gymboree. I'm going to make sure all of you go into the stream at your own risk, okay? This still is not your grandma's nursery home fucking live stream. This is where adults talk about adult things, like how almonds are better than walnuts, which, by the way, I still stand by. I dare anybody to concur. That's right, I didn't think so. Almonds are still at the top, despite what all these fucking walnut fanboys say. Okay, Ian, calm down. This is you're pushing the stream boundaries a little too hard, buddy. And you're lucky YouTube hasn't even censored you yet, because I still am under the extreme suspicion that YouTube still does not censor or does not show me the things that it censors. So when I see it, just giving me all these random ass comments that is telling me to review, I don't trust it one fucking bit, because I see tons of comments. If I switch to an alt account, like half the comments are gone, and for no reason too. If you just like put, I don't know, some like black spandex skin suit emoji or something like that, or something that's like relatively inoffensive. Like just some people were talking about how they're subscribed to Reader's Digest. Nothing else in it, and that comment was just abracadabraed off the entire live stream. So I just don't understand. Switch to Rumble. Well, listen, I love money, but I don't love money that much. I don't want for people to have to pay to come to see me. That's how I get all these bland corporate figureheads that demand too much out of me. Then they're going to want me to make a condom review each week. Oh, we're paying good money. I want you to review a new condom. Here, I'm going to send you my cock. Tell me the penis size. There's no community guidelines anymore, so I'm going to be pretty much a Pornhub sub-channel. That's going to be fucked up. I don't want to do that. I just want to stay in my little lane of free live streams, answering questions, and possibly asking questions to you, eating paper, and engaging with random people online, asking me very, very educated questions. Almonds are significantly better than walnuts. Well, you see, I'm not getting a much of walnut hate, probably because they're a little too scared, but also because I think recently there's been a bit of an awakening. A lot of people have woken up and realized that in walnuts, there's no, I mean, they're still good or anything. I mean, they're still good, but I'm not gonna. I do think that people are realizing, oh, wait a minute, walnuts are really bitter, and they, even though that bitterness can give some value taste wise to the nut, a lot of this shit with the what is it with how it leaves the throat taste. That can be a good or a bad thing depending on how you think about it. But almonds, objectively speaking, yes, they're a little more basic. They're more basic bitch nuts, but they will eventually, if you eat enough of them, you'll understand why I like them so much. And I only eat unsalted almonds by themselves. I don't mix them in a gay ass, stupid, dumbass salad like my mom does. I have never eaten or will ever eat a salad in my life. I know you've heard that a lot before, but I still maintain that I do not do it. A salad is lazy man's food. Tossing a bunch of shit together, not caring to actually incorporate it within itself. It's just a bowl of random shit thrown together. I mean, there is no craftsmanship to that. None. How do you get over being embarrassed about your internet presence, specifically with people around you like family? Well, I mean, that comes with the assumption that there is embarrassment to be had. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could live stream anywhere else other than here, because in this hallway, my door, it's always pretty much half open because I need ventilation in here because it's like 30 degrees hotter here than the rest of my house. So my hallway is arranged in this weird little faux cone shape to the point where everybody in the house can hear me right now. Everybody. And it's like clockwork. They know I'm doing this. In fact, the fact that I'm even being wacky and meta, I'm talking like this about them right now. I mean, I've done this so many times, and I've talked about quite literally every single controversial subject. They've heard me say quite literally everything. At this point, I'd consider this the past the point of no return. There is no getting over being embarrassed. I've already just had enough people send me death threats over the years, and I've had my family members witness enough stuff for me. I've already done enough things in front of a lot of people to the point where it all just, your tongue after you eat too many of those Warhead sour candies where you just don't feel anything anymore, and your tongue is just this like floppy, bloody, decayed just piece of junk that can't taste anything anymore. That's a great figurative. It's a little figurative image for what I imagine the embarrassment factor is. That's a very good question, though, Ian. But yeah, I think it could be a curse, but I also say it could be a blessing. There's a lot of great social filters that people often don't get past. A lot of great opportunities for interaction that can be had. Except there's that awkward little first moment that people always say, "Oh, I'm starting the conversation. Oh, great. Don't overthink it. Just do it." What I like to do is I like to just mentally disconnect from everyone and everything. I'm aware of people's presence around me. However, I always make it in my peripheral. I don't overfocus on people or their presumed reactions, because again, I can't read people, so I don't know how I can't read their facial expressions, and I can't intuit how people are feeling. I apparently that's a normal thing. People do that a lot. I have no clue how you all live, just instinctively knowing how people around you are feeling about a thing that you're saying or a thing that you're doing. When the beginning when this was starting, how'd you get over it? Because I had to get to this place somehow. I don't know, man. Actually, it's a good question. It's all a blur. I don't remember very much of it. One thing I'll say, Ian, I've seen you with that fat suit on with the what is it, the Waluigi costume. Come on, we're all in public. We're all goofing around. All right, I'm not special. All right, we all do embarrassing things. Don't pretend like this doesn't apply to everybody else. Everybody does things for a reason. All right. And I'm going to be super generous, and I'm going to say you did it for more than just attention. You did it because it meant something to you. All right? I'm doing this because it means something to me. This whole series was not called what it is at the beginning, because this entire series was started as a form of protest against my father, because he was banning any new videos from being uploaded. After the anti-dad rap, after the 50 subscriber toilet gang toilet vlog special, and after the emo Outcast song where I talked about shooting up a whole hospital with an AK-47 as a piece of flavoring to the song, not an actual threat, which was pretty obvious, but my stupid school didn't see it that way. I made the video public again, of course. You can scroll down on the main channel if you want to see that. One question, why? Well, there you go. I'm slapping 2 ass cheeks with 1 middle finger today. So 2 questions in one. Yeah, I enjoy the interaction, but past that, I think I want to reflect the values of what I stood for when I first started doing this stream. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is not being kicked down by any limp dick losers who try to push their flabs into your face, figuratively speaking, and sometimes literally speaking. When my dad was and I were younger, whenever I'd flip out, his form of a timeout, because if he put me into a corner, I'd just walk away. He'd sit on me. He'd sit on me, and he wouldn't like kill me. He wouldn't Homer style do a giant WWE shoulder crush move on me or anything like that. But He just shit on me because I wouldn't be able to escape, because that's like the only way. It was kind of the brute force method. I don't think any kid should ever this vividly understand what their dad's leg smells like, because my dad's leg has a very particular scent, and I only know this because of that tactic he'd use. So yeah, that was never supposed to happen. God did not intend for that to be a thing. So reality shattered the day my dad started doing that shit to me. When I get a death threat, I didn't just get one death threat, dude. Each month, man, I get combined of 15 to 20, because not just people who apparently are associated with you fellas, but also people from CCA, people associated with Eli himself, or completely random ass people who I cannot pin down where they come from due to alt accounts. They DM me, text me, approach me with random shit. I mean, it all really started after I stood up during that one assembly in sophomore year in high school, right? And I refused to ask the same boring questions when they were pushing some agenda where they were going, America is evil unequivocally, and white people all need to die. And I mean, they didn't say exactly that, but I'm telling you, they were dangerously close to spitting that type of rhetoric. And most other people, even though I highly doubt even close to half of them believed it, they were just standing up and going, okay, how can we stop bigotry in America? And I'm like, okay, I could affirm their agenda, or I could actually ask real questions. And they didn't like the fact that I was asking real questions involving statistics around gun violence and how, statistically speaking, the Second Amendment saves more lives than it takes. And people just aren't willing to acknowledge that. They're willing to cherry pick these little psycho, these little mini Adam Lanza wannabes, you know, causing a bunch of havoc and pointing that, oh my God, if they, you see, there you go, that they're the only example of guns being used for any function. No, absolutely not. Unironically, Brian, I aspire to be as raw and shameless as you are, but I don't have. You see, when you say unironically, Ian, that's been your entire thing. So I don't. Are you extra genuine this stream? I'm very confused. But I mean, I am a benefit of the doubt type of guy. So I will take it as it is. Don't have it in me. And yesterday, Krusty Lazagny offed himself. Who's Krusty Lazagny? Is he like your imaginary friend? That's very sad, by the way. I've had imaginary friends kill themselves too. Captain Cock Sparrow was a good man, and now he's dead. If Krusty Lazagny is like your pet or an actual friend who had a nickname who killed himself, I'm gonna feel so bad right now. Oh, it's your SoundCloud name. You fucking, oh my God. All right. You're saying you deleted your SoundCloud stuff? Come on, Ian. My rule, never delete. There are some legitimately like there are two videos, and I'm not gonna say which ones. There are two videos that I still have public that I find embarrassing, and I've never. The only reason any of my videos are no longer available to the public is because stupid ass YouTube takes them down. There are videos of mine that I'm like, oh God, I'm very embarrassed by this one. And not for the reasons you'd think. I'm embarrassed by... Okay, so I'll say this. There was one video I made, and I'm only going to say this one. One video that I was embarrassed by was I didn't have an actual computer to monitor. I had zero editing software. I had this large monitor, oversized. It was beautiful, by the way. I accidentally broke it. And I could play YouTube videos on it. And I was so tapped into YouTube drama when I was around 15, 16. And every time... some YouTuber name that I don't even think about anymore. It doesn't even cross my mind once. Like the Fousey Tuber, fucking Logan Paul, one of these guys, one of these carbon copy clone people who I'd make an angry video because sometimes they would do some outrageous stuff. I would literally take my phone and film my monitor. I'd be like a 4-year-old Roblox kid filming his phone, going, "This is outrageous. Do you see what Logan Paul did this time?" And only once I became more tapped into YouTube culture and I realized, oh, wait, I actually made that unironically, not as a fucking parody. When you guys watch it back, you're going to go, yeah, Breen was kidding around with this one. No, I was not. I was being a little commentary YouTuber ripoff. I am legitimately embarrassed by that video because I'm like, I could have been doing anything else with my time, or I could have made that video better by like adding some level of irony to it, or by not making it suck ass, but I kept that video up. I was so tempted to delete it, but it will destroy one of my fundamental principles as a person on the internet. Because if I don't let the things that I don't like stand to be seen, to me that's not that does not emulate how real life works. Because in real life, you will have moments in front of people. In real life, your dick will be hanging out, gonna get caught masturbating in the bathroom. You forgot to lock your door. Anything else? Maybe, I don't know. Your crusty lasagna SoundCloud music accidentally connects to the Bluetooth of your school speaker, plays it during the national anthem while it's playing, or something. Oh no, while the Pledge of Allegiance is playing. Anything like that. To me, you can't do a single damn thing about the people who will remember that incident, but that will continue for your relationship with those people to grow if you let it. So the way I think about that is letting things stay up. That's an emulation of real life. And I'm using school as one singular example. I'm saying in general, the public eye seeing you do stuff that, say, maybe later you might not approve of. To me, if you delete it, to me that's backpedaling, and backpedaling means you're de-evolving yourself. You're setting yourself back from where you could be, because as long as your knowledge, your subconscious, yes, I'm doing the subconscious thing again. As long as you have that subconscious knowledge that this shit's still up, then, oh, it's your parents. Well, if you're just talking about your parents, I mean, that's a lot simpler of a discussion. When you're talking about are you scared of your parents, bringing a hammer down on your ass? Because, I mean, I've already had enough conflicts with my parents over this exact YouTube channel to the point where kind of a callus has formed, where they've accepted that I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. I'm a legal adult. You are not. I've had numerous actual legitimate arms battles, and I mean, my relationship with my parents were in just the right spot, to the point where they weren't so overly supportive of me, obviously, to the point where they were just blunt and just brutal enough to me, to the point where I didn't get a big ego or a big head, to the degree where I end up, becoming, I feel, out of touch with what really I want to make. Because often when an ego gets out of control, you lose sight of what you actually want to make, and you end up focusing mainly on how you appear to other people. And to me, I was raised very differently than that. But at the same time, they cut me just enough slack to the point where I was able to get away with slipping through the cracks and eventually breaking their rules and unprivating some videos that they made me make private. So, Ian, do you act like a good boy in front of your mother? Well, I mean, okay, here's how I think about that. You live with your mother every day. Your mother is one of the first people who saw your face. Your mother's face is one of the first faces you saw, Ian. I'd say, and don't take this in a weird way, Ian. I know you're a fucking perverted monster with a head in the gutter, but your relationship with your mother is, practically speaking, one of the most intimate right now. By intimate, I mean you are close with her. You love her, right? Unless I'm really stumbling upon a really weird mother-son relationship. The two of you need to be as genuine with each other as possible. So I think you need to be your genuine, unironic self, because I think your mental health will decrease significantly if you are emotionally dishonest with one of your parents. Me with my father is a great example of that. However, the difference here is I can't really help. I don't like being socially or emotionally dishonest with people. In fact, there have been many situations where it would help for me to not be myself, and I kind of fucked myself over there. And with my dad, I mean, I feel like I'm biased, but I mean, my relationship with him is so messy and complicated. I mean, it's a lot better than it was a little bit ago, but back then, I mean, he was my homeschool teacher, and having my drunk dad, especially in the state he was in, your dad would just yell. Well, I mean, if I failed to laminate one of my geography flashcards, I mean, my dad would not just yell. He'd pull my hair, throw me across the room. He never intended to hurt me. It's just when he was on the stuff, not like Tuco, Salamanca, methamphetamine, more like Chris Case, completely just zapped out of his mind because of all those hops of beer he drank. And I'm not kidding. The guy has good alcohol tolerance, but he'd have jugs of that shit all at once, and the entire house would smell like his breath. And if I did one little thing wrong, man, he'd give me this look, and I'd have this sinking feeling in my chest. And go, oh shit, here it comes. Okay, because I would do absolutely nothing wrong, and the guy would just completely lose his shit. And you could tell he was projecting about, I don't know, his mother, Grandma Kathy. She's bipolar. She loses her shit all the time. So I mean, I can't imagine to pin down, sink my bloody little AIDS infested hooks into what exactly is causing all this stuff, right? A colonoscopy, the actual cause out of the proverbial ass of treason that is my dad's relationship with me. But what I can surmise is that he sucked. He sucked in 3rd grade and 4th grade for me. Every day was hell. Every day was just like me going, please, Dad, please be merciful with me today. Please don't be cruel. And he got less cruel as time went by, particularly when I started standing up for myself. But it would continue in these small, more subtle ways where, every day would be some sort of berating on my masculinity and this and that and the other thing. And then every day in school would be people calling me retard this, illiterate that, an improper motor function, can't properly sensory process shit, the other thing. And at some point, I mean, I had all these OT therapists telling me that I absolutely had, in order to avoid those types of interactions, I had to dumb myself down. I had to read every interaction by a script. And at some point, I think I realized that doesn't work for me, because there is no joy in life to be had if I have these mediocre conversations. Oh, hi, how's the weather today? Great. Oh, God, that sucked. I can't keep having these conversations. So I started conversing and interacting with people and going about my life on my own terms. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made. Sometimes people won't like you. Because I certainly have had people dislike me upon only first impressions. Ask Caden and his weird faux lesbian girlfriend who he has this weird thing with, and all these other people who apparently want to dox people who dox me and people who I know to find out if I am a supposed pedophile or not, with absolutely no supporting evidence, which I will still hold against you freaking cretins to this day. I still don't like that, not one bit. My dad and my dad would probably get along. They would not share a single word. They'd probably just drink beer together, maybe have a small burping competition. My dad would win. Sorry, Ian. But, there's two Ians, one that's relatively normal but still genuine, and the silly minion porn Ian, and I use them in different scenarios. I see. So it's like a light switch on and off. I wish I had a light switch. I can't have a light switch like that, and especially when it would be useful to me. So apologies for berating myself in front of one person on a group on a live stream, but one of the ways in which my dad's attitude, because I would get better at defending myself in front of my father, and I'd say, okay, no, I'm not going to really stand for that. Sorry, Dad. And I'd put the foot down. Sometimes it wouldn't work, but I have to use trial and error because, depending on how hard I get flogged. But I got bigger. I got relatively stronger. I'm not going to say I'm my 6'1" dad, but I'll say that I think I'm good enough to the point where I can stand my ground if he approaches me fists balled up, which I'd say once every 5 months, him and I get into a fight where that happens. I stand my ground and I go, Dad, the January 6th riots are more complicated than you're making it. By the way, it's all politically related now, because when he gets drunk, his political ideas are so fucking ridiculous. The guy was a practicing Marxist for 30 years. So I have some things to say, especially when he goes off on a rant. I'm like, what am I supposed to not respond? But I mean, if your political points of view are based in direct retaliation to your father, my dad and your dad would certainly not get along. But yeah, it's still it's still annoying to me, and it's still kind of pathetic that I'm a nearly 20-year-old man and I still get into just these little physical man baby fights with my dad at this age, at this stage of my life. Not sure why it keeps happening. It happens a lot less frequently than it used to, but it still happens. And I think it happens again once every 5 months, and it needs to happen 0 times. So, but my dad and I disagree politically, and I can't have a conversation because he's not the brightest, and he'll just yell at me and tell me I'm wrong. It's like talking to a wall, dude. You and I, kindred spirits, my friend. Yeah, because I mean, what my dad would do, and what he still does, is he has this assumption that, and I still think it's the age thing, because he's the guy who raised me, And he's the guy who, and because of that, there's this like permanent hierarchy that he has in his head. And I can't do a damn thing to get rid of it. I mean, I can give a literal rationalization step by step on what I think is happening. Again, I might be wrong, but I have a pretty heavy feeling about this. I've had a pretty strong sense about this for the last 19 years, going on 20 years. And the way I see it, he still sees me as, he's right here, my son down here. When it comes to how I, do my political research and how I handle myself when it comes to opinions I have, I believe that I would like to be courteous. I'm going to say my dad and I are on a more even keel than he thinks we are, because he sits in his little CNN, MSNBC bubble, and he only consumes what he sees on a screen, what the algorithm feeds him. But for me, it's not very productive, not very time efficient, but I have to, what I like to do is I like to go everywhere. All right. I want to go on government websites. I want to go on verified websites, on an op-ed or two, but I want to have conclusive evidentiary proof and I also want to understand the talking points against a perspective I have before I argue for my point. That's basic common sense that like 90% of people don't have now, especially my dad. What the fuck is this? See, this is the first time I got my hair cut by a professional hairdresser, and he was a really nice guy. I don't understand, how is this stuff supposed to slip through the cracks? Like, okay, maybe if I just do a factory reset. Nope, still worse, but whatever, I digress. What my dad would do is, no matter what I would say, right? Brick wall would be hit. Got a concussion now. And my head would fucking hurt because of how stupid he'd be. And everything would just go, Brian, you only think this because all of these alt-right people who you watch on the internet say. And I'm like, dude, no. Half of the people who I watch on YouTube are not alt-right. I actually watch people on the left a lot. And I'm trying to gain more perspective. In fact, I think it choosing to watch alternative opinions strengthens my point of view a little bit more than seeing the video equivalent of an echo chamber. I mean, I do listen to both sides, but I actually been trending more towards going towards ulterior opinions, be it on Instagram and YouTube and all that. But I mean, does he know any of that, and does he believe me when I say that? Oh, absolutely not. Doesn't matter if I did or didn't, but he doesn't believe me. And no matter what proof I give of that, and not just that, it's like I'd be fine with that. But he uses this whole political disagreement to make to cast these aspersions on the entirety of my worth as his son. Like he verbally disowns me as his son whenever I disagree with him on something, because he considers me brainwashed and a lost cause, when in fact I'd say it's the opposite of that. And Ian, if you were to kind of challenge my political beliefs and to have actual serious conversations with me, I think, hopefully, unless I'm actually retarded and I've been brainwashed this whole time, which again is not impossible, but my guess is if you were to have an actual political discussion with me, I think you'd realize that I prefer to walk my own path, and that is a path of greater resistance, not the path of least resistance. And a great piece of that greater resistance is my father's existence. But if we were to discuss my thoughts on things like, say, abortion, gun control, this, that, the other thing, we'd have a very insightful conversation, and we'd probably, and I'd say, whenever you see one of those reposts that I do, just know that I'm always just poking the bear. So if you actually want to go inside the bear, waddle amongst the entrails, get a glimpse of what's inside, there's more to the bear than you think there is. Or no, there's more to the stick that pokes the bear. God damn it, I fucked the analogy up. There's more to the stick. If you want to crawl inside the asshole of the stick, there's a lot more to the stick than you think. There's more dimensions to it. Don't try and change my opinion. Oh, it's not about changing. It's all about sharing, and people aren't willing to share. Sharing is sometimes kind of caring, and in this situation it most certainly is, but people consider sharing a attempted indoctrination, when in fact it shouldn't be. It should be, I take what I want from what you say, what I agree with, and I apply that to the rest of my life, right? Be a sponge. Don't be a rock like my dad. My dad is quite literally a rock. But I'm pretty liberal but you hate the term woke. I don't think any singular person on the planet likes the term woke, which is good. I'm glad that you're a sane person. comes with the expectations of agreeing with everything on the left. And agreeing with everything on the right or the left, that's an imaginary thing. In fact, my theory, my little crazy, wacky tinfoil condom conspiracy theory, is that there is no such thing as a person who agrees with everything on the right or the left. I think a lot of it's social games, because socially speaking, it's very rewarding to be particularly a politician who has influence and, of course, can get people to mirror your exact opinions, which happens all the time. On both the right and the left, there are people who are public figures. They have influence. In fact, even being on the internet has influence, which probably makes the problem worse, by the way, when I actually get to what the problem is. But when you have political influence, it benefits you greatly when it comes to followers and good publicity, to have opinions that all fill out this little checklist. So if you are labeled as a conservative, and you actually believe in, say, the idea of making abortion illegal, right? Then, but what if say you have a different opinion on free healthcare? Because the thing is that a lot of these issues aren't related at all. They have nothing to do with each other. But more often than not, you're going to see people using their little hive mind, go with the Walking Dead zombie mob crowd, and they're gonna pick out, okay, fine. I've already have this whole group rallying behind me because I dislike abortion legitimately. However, I have differing opinions on free healthcare because it's a completely unrelated issue. But all these people mean I'm going to lose followers if I don't. So this is a really long form way of saying people often artificially adjust their own opinions in order, externally that is, in order to just satisfy people, keep them happy, especially when you're in public. And before, that would be limited to only politicians. So people who weren't politicians would often frown at what they were doing. And many people in the public eye or in normal everyday life were a lot more politically grounded. But now that everybody, because of the internet, has eyes on them all the time, if you don't fill out that checklist, right? If one moment you're opposing abortion, but another moment you're supporting free healthcare, or you're seen as some unstable flip-flopper, right? You have to fill out that perfect checklist. I mean, that's kind of what Kanye's doing right now. What Kanye's doing right now is, yeah, he stood for things, very liberal ideas. In fact, I believe he still does. I mean, he donated to BLM, the actual organization, and George Floyd's daughter. And now people are so confused when he dislikes the fact that the organization has gone too far. They've literally swindled money from people who cared about the actual issues. It's run by this socialist fuck who keeps buying a bunch of fucking property for no reason. And the organization has caused more property damage and more deaths resulting from the actual George Floyd death than George Floyd's death itself. And of course, the people who advocate for it, from what I've seen, they also just choose to cherry pick these examples and ignore when it hits the other side of the fence, when racism swings in the other direction. My dad's big problem is that he only likes to see bad things happening in the world. Geez, your dad seems like he's fun at parties. When it's caused by a person of color, because it's what he wants to see, and he's just strengthening his prejudices. Yeah, I'm very curious what your dad's opinion on Mr. West is, but I mean, yeah. One thing I'll say, though, is that I'd say when it comes to that opinion, systemic racism does not exist, but what I do believe exists is cultural racism, and I believe that the blame is on everybody, and I think that's a really good motto for in general. The blame is on everybody. There is you can't really quantify blame past the yes or no, is this person to blame? So to me, when you start quantifying blame from one side to the other, it becomes a very unproductive conversation, and it solves nothing, and it makes no logical sense. I mean, I could get into the nitty-gritty of it, but it should already be self-evident. But a big example of when it comes to people committing crimes is everyone's at fault, because people outside of these Black communities and people within the Black communities, they raise their kids with the knowledge of they pushed us down and we must retaliate. And unfortunately, not all the time, but what they mean by retaliate is, find morally unjust ways to retaliate against the evil white man or those who are against us. And of course, your brain then just cherry picks and chooses the people who are supposedly against us. So then you have a situation where you have the reactionaries, right? Now you have these kids who were raised, unfortunately, by their parents in these Black communities to act a certain way. How do the people on the other side react? by making it worse, by criminalizing these people, by punishing them, and by having these biases. They instill these biases within themselves. So if we want to know about, there is an objective amount of animosity towards police from the Black community. And I'm tired of people pretending that it's not true. And it's really, like, it's not just the Black community's fault either. It's more double pronged than that. The police are at fault too, and all the other communities, all these talking heads everywhere, they're at fault too, because they choose as well to not understand where the issue comes from. They criminalize these Black people when that's not how you create a solution. It's how you make it worse, and that's how you create further criminals. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you label them as criminals, there's a good chunk of that community is going to raise their next generation and saying, they labeled us as criminals, we'll show you a criminal. I mean, mindsets like that have existed since ancient Greece, probably before then, since the beginning of frickin' time. So if we're going to expect for us as a human race to ignore our evolutionary tactics and how we instinctively respond to certain labels and how different types of fingers get pointed at us, I wouldn't lay all my chips there. So yeah, I don't think anybody talks about how it's the Black community. It is definitely on them. A good amount of it's on them for unjustly retaliating against these people. Again, holding this whole ancestral thing where they're going, yes, your ancestors did this. That defines you. No, we are a group of individuals. We're a large mass of individuals, all right? And despite, yes, genetics exist and bigots exist everywhere, our ancestors' actions do not define us. I thought that was like a basic exercise. I thought that was a basic exercise in critical thinking that we should have been done with in preschool. But turns out a lot of the left just has not internalized that. So we're still dealing with people who are exacting those mindsets. And I'm not going to shut up about this whole BLM thing and how I think it's a ridiculous and very weird culty organization that's fucked up so many times until I hear people acknowledge fully that it is everyone's fault. And everyone's at fault for why there is animosity towards the police from Blacks and animosity towards Blacks from the police. Everyone's at fault. It's a domino effect, right? Because the police are brought into the precinct and they go, okay, so there's a long history of Blacks generally starting shit with us. And that's because obviously the previous generation of precinct officers had animosity towards the Blacks. But wait, why did these previous precinct officers have animosity towards the Blacks? Well, because they have to be extra cautious because Black people tended to start shit around them. But why did those Black people start shit around them? Well, because they were taught by their parents, the police are against us. There's a history of them being against us, so we got to be cautious around them. So now if you have these two groups of people that are instinctively cautious around each other, right? There's already a little bit of nasty friction. They're expecting each other to whip out a gun, and expose their cock, start jizzing on them, shooting bullets at their face at any time. I mean, that creates tension, and that can be interpreted one or two ways, but it seems like the only two ways people interpret it is it's all the Blacks' fault. Oh, no, it's all the police's fault. Should we see the problem with this when the issue is very clearly more complicated? Anyways, it's a community thing. Don't blame individuals. Yeah, and a lot of it is unfortunately an after effect of the Jim Crow era because, I believe it did. Chicken and the egg, it did start as, actual systemic racism existing, right? And I'm going to say this again, systemic racism does not exist anymore. When the Civil Rights Act was signed and legislatively the status quo was adjusted and a Black person is now equal legally to the status quo, right? A white person, or what was regarded at the time as the status quo, that might seem like a material thing, right? It's just a piece of paper that got signed. But societally, yeah, in the hive mind's brain, it has a great subconscious effect. People started looking at people so much more differently, to the point where, yeah, I believe that we as a human species, at least in the little culture bubbles that we have passed these legislations through, have changed so drastically in a good way. Where, yeah, objectively, we are now a melting pot, and I do not believe that overall, if you're summing up America as a whole, I don't believe in this narrative of Black people are at a general disadvantage in America. There are some regions of America where Black people are at a disadvantage, but there are some regions in America where white people are at a disadvantage. Now with no legislation, because what the legislation did is it instilled these rules that made the entirety of America one large bubble. Everywhere in America, Blacks were at a disadvantage. Everywhere in America, Asians were at a disadvantage. Everywhere in America, Indians were at a disadvantage. There were some exceptions where you had these small, tiny communities where, say they would skirt the law, right? They'd have tiny little, I don't know, tent huts underground where the law couldn't reach them, right? In that situation, in those tiny little bubbles, right? But we're speaking generally. Now with the legislation gone, right? Bubble's been popped. Now America is a large collection of different bubbles. I mean, I used to live in a place where my family was not allowed to eat because we were Asian. We were too Asian for them. And so I mean, and oh God, and I've already said this a million times, and I'll use this as a shitty talking point again. But I mean, I could not have a normal day in school without being called a chink, a zipperhead, given the ching chong bing bong treatment, and being pushed around, given a couple bruises on my face because of how I looked, because I was the only Asian kid in my entire neighborhood. So, but when I moved over here, I mean, now Asian people are the majority. It's just Chinatown up in here, and it's just every and I think that the Stop Asian Hate people and in these Asian communities, they have too much power. I mean, you have literal Chinese nationalists getting away with shit because there's just so much focus on how evil white people are. Like, they're in this region, like free speech wise, white people are at a serious disadvantage. To the point where it's like, I'm seeing people reap benefits that they shouldn't be reaping because everyone's just too damn focused on white people being evil. So I do not live in Myra Mesa. I live in Carmel Valley, the worst fucking neighborhood ever. It's so boring. Nothing happens. Everybody hates each other. No one talks to each other. The only time there was any sense of community is when I did get death threats from Eli, and he was threatening to come over to my address and shoot me up. My neighbor Juan, he used to work with the Navy. He had a sniper that I don't think he was professionally trained with, but he had it, and it had bullets. And we shook on it, and he agreed to defend me against Eli and his big brother, even though I gave them the address to a male strip club. They never got my real address, so it was never even a thing in the first place. But Juan was just extending his gratitude towards my undeniable plight. So no, I do not live in Myra Mesa. I unfortunately live in hell. But my thoughts on Joe Rogan. Yeah. Oh well, just so I can clear this up. No. If you place a person of any particular race in any region of America, depending on what region you're in, you're gonna see a different story. You're gonna see either a story of a person who's just fine, or could be at a significant advantage because of the people that are around him or her, whatever, or the societal little micro rules that exist in these bubbles, in these regions, or you'll have a story of prejudice, someone who is at a disadvantage. I have experienced both of these, and it's given me a lot of perspective to the point where I realize, no, there is no systemic America's rigged against black people. America's not rigged against Asian people as a whole. There are parts of America that are, but I have quite literally heard nobody giving this point of view. And there has to be people who think this. This is not that difficult of a point of view to have. There's not too many mental gymnastics required to reach this point. I think a lot of it is, if you say something like this publicly, you're fucked, dude. You're not getting your Arby's dishwashing job. People are just gonna watch your shit, or a lot of people are just legitimately too scared, and that is a mindset that I want to combat. But yeah, my thoughts on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is an example of someone who never should have ever caught any heat for anything. Like, I can't think of like a single problem I have with him. He has some like strange opinions, but that's the whole point of what he does. It's opinions. He has opinions on stuff, and he shares them. He has some. He's an example of a person who is very honest about his opinions. Right? He legitimately did not want to help Trump get back in office. Like, Trump was like, I feel like people were willing to have there's like some sort of string pulling involved where Trump was like about to go on his show, and Joe Rogan was going, yeah, fuck that, I don't want to help that loser get back in office, which I disagree with. I mean, apparently Joe Rogan hates Trump more than I do, which my mom never would have predicted. Oh my God, it would blow, it would help, it would make her brain implode if she ever fucking knew about that. But yeah, there's like, normally I'd offer like a more nuanced double-sided thing, but it's like there's like nothing wrong that he did. Like, Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan are two examples of people who caught so much shit for nothing, and It's so frustrating to like just why did this happen? It's just an anomaly to me. Why? But yeah, I don't know. Just a lot of the people, especially in this fucking Asian communities around here, who are talking about how there's so much unequivocal racism that exists not just here but in America as a whole, and their evidence that they give is that someone dared to ask them what country their family is from, and it's like, what the fuck do you want? And then another student complained that a kid just tried to treat them like a normal person. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I know the way I'm wording it, it sounds ridiculous, but there is a kid who had a problem because the peers around her refused to acknowledge her Asian heritage. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. Why do you? It's like, if I acknowledge that you're different, we're fucked. If we acknowledge that you're the same, I guess we're fucked. Why? And it's all from these kids who have only lived here their entire life. The most privileged place to live if you're an Asian person. And I can say that I'm a fucking privileged son of a bitch out here. I have experienced, the one exception is when COVID started and I was just trying to go to Rite Aid to buy some Doritos. There was this like white lady that was passing by and she was giving me these like weird looks. And I thought it was about nothing. Again, I can't read facial expressions. However, it was so blatant at one point where it was there's no other explanation for this behavior. The only way I could interpret it was her going, "Your people did this to us." I'm like, I just want to get Doritos. I didn't work in the shitty Wuhan lab where it all started. I'm not a member of the Chinese government. I didn't do any of this shit to you. So that's the one exception. Oh yeah, right. I was on the way to Dom's house for one of the Panamas, and I was at a convenience store because I'd rollerbladed all the way there. It was horrific, by the way. It was terrible. And I was taking too long because I was talking about Bazooka bubblegum comic strips. And one of these old guys that I unfortunately made wait an extra 5 minutes in the line. He told me, "Go back to Japan." And I'm like, "All right, sorry." It was like one of the most ridiculous things. I was so focused on getting to Dom's house. I did not expect for it to cut. It just came out of nowhere, and the guy looked ridiculous. He had this crazy, just white-haired mustache. It just perfectly fit his character. Go back to Japan. Thanks, random old guy. But aside from that, I mean, that's quite literally nothing. No one's taken any swings at me. I mean, in Ashland, people would physically assault me because of how I look. So I've experienced none of that here. So it's way too cool. I moved from Florida to my. You moved from hell again. Yeah, there's way too many hells in America. I'll say that. It actually contributes to the theme of this episode. I asked my mom why there are so many ninjas around us. Very, very good question. Ask one of them to karate chop you, and they'll probably actually do it because they're very reactionary. They'll make a big fuss about everything. What did your mom better have given you a clear answer? Ian, stop being a bigot. All right, be like your non-bigoted dad. I don't know how on board your mom is with you don't live there anymore. Okay, that's good. I don't want for you to get your chakras, I don't know, sliced in half by some random Asian kid who you insulted his glasses or something like that. That'd be fucked up. I don't want for my boy Ian to experience abuse from hateful Asians like that. So, but yeah, no, I disagree with a lot of the narratives that particularly the left pushes. And it used to be that conservatives pushed this idea of unforgiveness, of censorship, right? They were the ones censoring all the stuff. Frank Zappa was the Democrat who was arguing for there being artistic freedom, and the conservative was this stuck-up Christian guy going, "Hot for teacher, we can't have that. Why is the character in this rock song hot for teacher? Why can't we go back to Mozart? He never had sex ever." It's like, people advocating for it to go back to the classics and for things to be nice and geriatric and milquetoast and inoffensive. Now the tables have completely flipped, and I guarantee you the majority of conservatives aren't doing it out of disingenuousness. They actually advocate for completely different values. Like, a conservative now is the reverse opposite of what a conservative was a bit ago, where I'm purely a libertarian. And libertarians, I mean, think about the root word here. Libertarians are now just socially equated to conservatives when they were originally liberals. They were the same thing. I mean, back in the 1970s, the libertarian movement was an actual thing. There was people speaking out against the censorship of their free speech because these stuck up Christian schoolboy losers in their colleges were there with their small penises talking about how you can't have any swear words in rock music. You can't acknowledge that masturbation exists. But now it's like it's hit the other side, right? And now libertarians despite the root word in the fucking name, is now not associated with liberals. It's associated with the opposite side. So, you know, I think it's very interesting. I will always stand for free speech, and I will always say that the left today has a problem, much more of a problem than conservatives do. I'm not going to play the both sides thing here, all right? Conservatives are not guilty of the same level of ridiculous, irrational, legitimately hateful speech that the left is. Like, the left is completely fucked right now, and that is why I have the opinions I do, because I've seen it over and over again. And when you're talking about some of the first death threats I received that weren't related to me being Asian in Ashland when I was like 6, the first actual death threats I received for a view that I had that I still stand by was from the Asian community, because I'm at one of their fucking assemblies in my sophomore year of high school. I asked some questions involving, yeah, that's not really racism, is it? And they were telling me that I had privilege. Yeah, right. Sure, yeah, we all have privilege to some degree, don't we? But in the way that they meant it, oh, they were barking up the wrong asshole, that's for sure. My problem with my dad is not just his views; it's just how he comes to his ideas. Yeah, that's true. It's not just your ideology. It's like execution matters. That's just how the way things should be. No sympathy for anything he doesn't understand. Yeah, I get that. And closed-mindedness is not exclusive to. I mean, I'll say this. I think that in general, the left has more of a problem with closed-mindedness right now, but it's still on an individual level. It exists everywhere with many different individuals. So. 51 minutes. Wow. And the paper was gone like 25 minutes ago. But I got to take a shower. I am completely stinky. The political flop sweat has started to trickle down my nose. You see it? Yeah, trust me, it's there. But yeah, I gotta take a shower. But this is a very insightful conversation. And when a stream gets this long and I've talked about so many things, you always feel like there's some sort of inconclusiveness to it, right? There's always some sort of thing. But I mean, when you branch off into so many lanes of conversation, there are going to be some ungrown branches, and that's a good thing. No, you asking real questions and giving actual input that isn't a bunch of minion reverse penetration porn. Thank Christ. I'm glad that we're giving us ourselves a variety, right? The existence of this conversation is a monumental first. All right, that's good. Thank you. You see, variety, exactly what I'm talking about. Those emojis are very welcome right now, because Caden hasn't spammed 20 of them a minute for the last 20 minutes, like he used to do. So everything's good in moderation, right? So one singular in moderation dab emoji a day keeps Caden away. I mean, before he puts more in the chat. But this was day 352 of the stream. Forgot the number. I will see you all on the next paper eating adventure. That will be day 353. Make sure to laugh, cry, and also not die. Good discussion, Ian. Hopefully more in the future. Goodbye.